Hello, this is Vance, and this is Monday, April the 17th, 2017. These are the CL trades for today using the slow hand method for price action. Not a lot of trades today. In fact, really it was just a big range. Not a lot of volume today, as we've grown accustomed to over the last little while. I suspect it's because of this being a holiday. Well, kind of a holiday. Good Friday was on Friday. This is Easter Monday, and despite the fact that it's not really an official holiday in a lot of places, I suspect that that's why there's less volume today. People just stayed away. Anyway, the point is that the markets were a lot slower today. The CL market seemed to be slower today as far as volume is concerned. I don't know what the reason for. I think that's probably the reason. Let me talk about what I was talking about this morning. I talked about this trade being about an hour before the open, 8:02, before 9 o'clock. We had this big thrust up. Now, I had mentioned the fact that, price can do one of two things. It can go up and it can go down. And when price opened at 9 o'clock, and this is the 9 o'clock opening, it was a fairly bullish opening. Usually within the first half hour, you're going to look at which volume direction is going to be heading. And two things, because of the lower volume and because of the fact that it was really sideways. It was really kind of stacking up. You really don't know where prices. It didn't get the push that you might have expected when this run up took place in the early, just before the open. Now, there is resistance. If you look from on last Thursday, prices at 53, just over the $53 mark, and I talked about that last week. $53 seemed to be an area of resistance, so you might have kept that in mind. But price really didn't get purchased, despite the fact, you see, we had this overlap. Instead of having a real straight down or like a push down to click in targets, there was some bullish sentiment and tried to pull price up, even though it kind of moved its way down slowly. Now, we did have this micro double top that really occurred at roughly around 53.10 and couldn't break through. So even though this is a second entry long, it's not a real great one because you do have this stacking up, this overlapping. Price makes a slight push and then turns around and heads in the other direction. So when you establish this particular range, it's only really 15 ticks, so it's pretty tight. So if you're looking at going short or going long, you want to try to limit it at as bottom as possible. Now, I don't think this is a bad trade for a short. This is a short up here, but again, there's this overlapping, and this would be you'd really have to kind of leap expecting prices to perhaps come back down and retest this lower area because this run up just prior to the open. This is a little bit later on. This is just roughly at 10 o'clock, and so from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, there's not a lot of action in here. There's not a lot of volatility. You could have taken this trade. It's a second entry short right here. Pulls down, and now it does work out, but look how the length of time it takes to work out. This is 10 o'clock. This is 11 o'clock. So an hour later, before price is moving, it's really moving about 25 ticks. So if you're in on this trade, you watch this back and forth. I don't know if you got shaken out or just stayed with it. Price does make a bounce here, and again, this is a pretty strong move at the bottom of this channel. That's a pretty strong bar. Do I think that we're going to go and price was going to head up in this direction as an equal measured move? I don't know. We already had this downward movement, and for it to really overcome and go in this direction, I was kind of skeptical in that. Now, let's take a look at stepping through. If you look at stepping through on a bar-by-bar basis, this takes, by the time price really turns around, this is an hour later. This is 9 o'clock open. It takes an hour for price to move, basically, 20 ticks, even to the downside, but with these pullbacks. Another hour, price gets down to here. So the first 2 hours, we don't have a lot of movement. We really have just basically a 30-tick rotation. Now, price does spring back out of here, but even if you get it on this trade, it doesn't really afford you enough for a lot of room. So again, from here to this area, this is another 45 minutes. So we're talking from 9 o'clock to 11:45. We're looking at 2 hours and 45 minutes. We don't have a lot of movement. Now, this is a second entry short. The second entry short is actually right here, but when you have this rejection at the top of this channel and a strong bar down like this one, I think this is kind of worthwhile to take because we think we're going to really test this area again. It does, hesitates, and then that's pretty much it. So that's really what I saw. These trades are difficult. You would have had to sit with a lot of patience. If you have a bullish bias, you're probably in a little bit of trouble to try. I mean, certainly when prices, you'd have to use a time stop, and that's the difficult thing. One of the most difficult things that I find personally is using a time stop when you pull the trigger on a trade, because there's been lots of trades that will actually turn out near the end of the 35 minutes, and all of a sudden they'll blast up and go higher, and exercising patience. So you should have some type of rule as far as the time stop is concerned. The one that I typically try to use, that if price starts stacking up, and this is what Mac says, and I think about Mac as far from price action trading systems. If there's a doji, or there's one or two bars or three bars stack up side by side, he's looking at pulling the trade, getting out of the trade. So if you take that same type of premise, if you're shorted here and you've got this bar is kind of like stacking up this third bar, and you haven't moved to in your direction, then you may consider closing out. Do you hold a trade for 30 minutes to try to get to your target? That's an awfully long time. In fact, a whole trend can change in a 30-minute period of time. So I haven't talked much about time stops, or what would you consider a time stop, because that's a difficult subject. I mean, you have to recognize the fact that because we had lower volume yesterday, that time, this morning, because we had lower volume this morning, that time stop might be a bigger issue. So that's something to really give you pause, to give you consideration. And so that's something to keep in mind. So that's it for today. I'll look at doing a pre-market first thing tomorrow morning. Again, not too much happening. Maybe tomorrow it'll pick up a little bit more. This is Vance. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.